Russell Crowe is on a kick to kick-ass demons, and this is another one.
Yeah, it's a very confusing thing because we have like the son of an actor from The Exorcist directing a movie about an exorcist who's playing a character in a movie. It's confusing. We're going to unwrap all those layers. Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Yep.
We're going to exorcise your demons, and I'm Kyle Goethe from GoatheFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans,
continue to support the show.
thank you for supporting the show. Yes, another way you can support the show, Patreon. Join the Patreon. You can tell us in a future episode what movies we review. And, of course, a shout-out to you as well. We got some great content and great deals and great opportunities. And today we're talking about another Russell Crowe Exorcism movie. What is going on? As if we didn't know.
Yeah. When a struggling actor finally gets his comeback starring role as the priest in an exorcism film, he begins experiencing strange occurrences related to the filming. His estranged daughter wonders if these occurrences are due to his addiction returning or something far more sinister.
This is very much see it at midnight. I actually watched it I went to a screening at 10 o'clock at night. I actually elevated a little bit of the movie.
Yeah.
But overall, this is kind of a script that needs to flesh out a little more. That's kind of what I feel.
And it's disappointing because the first 30 minutes, the first 30 minutes, my wife and I were looking at each other like, this is such a cool idea. And it's so meta because, like I mentioned earlier, Joshua John Miller, the director of the film, is the son of Jason Miller, who played Father Karras in The Exorcist. Yeah. Which is and so the film about making a movie that's very clearly an Exorcist remake. You know, they can't hint at it because of the legality, I'm sure, but they very clearly are making a remake of The Exorcist. And he's playing the Karras role, I would assume, or maybe even the Father Merrin.
This fictional account of that it was haunted and all the stories. It's true that you heard about those.
Well, and I remember in like the late 2000s, I didn't watch E! Channel for anything except they would occasionally do these 1-hour retrospectives on like the true horror behind the making of the Omen franchise and those kinds of things, which I always found fascinating. And the meta-contextuality of having Russell Crowe playing an exorcist in a movie after last year playing an exorcist in a movie, it's actually kind of unintentional because this movie was shot pre-pandemic in November and December of 2019. Yeah. They went back and did some extra shooting last year, which I feel like probably is one of the reasons why it feels like it makes a sharp turn about an hour in.
Yeah, that's a very sharp turn to the party after the party. Great short film in the beginning. Yeah, that's a great short film. I was on board.
Single shot, especially Adrian Pasdar, who I think is fantastic and never gets anything to do. Yeah. I wish he got more in this.
Everybody's making an effort. There's another Sam Worthington movie we're seeing. He gets a good death in it. Adam Goldberg's trying his best for this movie. David Hyde Pierce is coming in.
Well, then you have strange occurrences. Samantha Morton is in one scene. Like, I feel like she had a character that got cut. That's my assumption, right?
Yeah.
There's so many appearances from people. You get Chloe Bailey, who is one half of the musicians, Chloe and Hallie, with her sister, who was the Little Mermaid last year.
Sorry, I was drinking, but yeah.
So we have like some people that we recognize across the board. There's even Ryan Simpkins, who I think we both enjoyed the Fear Street trilogy. She was in that.
Yes, I love that. The 85.
We've got some really, really good people in this movie for genre filmmaking.
I think, when I was watching the movie, the crutch for me is the maintain of a tone and sacrificing everything else about it. Mm-hmm. There's a scene where he obviously gets possessed by the demon on set, and we just cut did everybody just go home after that?
It reminds me of when Godzilla showed up in the 2014 Godzilla film, and then they cut to the aftermath, and it's like, we were here for that.
Yeah. There's a lot of just weird cuts, like all of a sudden David Hyde Pierce is at the apartment, and then he's not there. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a lot of, I don't think there was a continuity problem. There's a problem with post-production that happened. Right, I think there's a cut of Samantha Morton that she was involved. We're going to probably have stories, a lot of things were cut that were unapproved of. That just feels like it's just out of loop. There's a lesbian relationship that just throw it out there just to be salacious. Yeah. It doesn't feel organic at all.
It feels kind of like they're coming into it and they're trying to write how they think younger people would act.
Yeah.
You know? And I like some of Joshua John Miller's other screenplays. He wrote this with his partner, M.A. Fortin. I like some of the screenplays that they've done. I think this is his first directing job since 1997's The Mal Game, which was an independent, very small movie based on a book that he wrote. So, hasn't been behind the chair in a while, and I think it's noticeable. And it's unfortunate because I think there's something to this script that makes me die to see what it actually could have been.
Right. And I think the sacrifice is maintain a tone and maintain that demons, for some reason, love theatrics. I don't know. We've seen enough movies. We just know they like to be theatrical.
Al Pacino in The Devil's Advocate.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
And of course, you have this very symmetrical standoff that just seems so junior high filmmaking.
Yeah.
And and I don't want to think the director, but I think there's a lot of people had their hands into how you want to set this up.
Yeah. It's confusing. It doesn't feel like this is the movie they planned on making, and especially when it makes that hard turn about an hour in to just becoming a random Exorcist movie, because there's so much CG and like intense diving into the exorcism scenes itself that it felt like it was actually scenes cut from the Pope's Exorcist, which was an over-the-top CG fest last year that embraced its silliness, and one of the reasons why I wanted to see this movie so bad.
Yeah, that movie had like Constantine, Keanu Reeves demons.
Yeah, but if you get into that, if you like get on that wavelength, my wife and I'm no joke, have watched The Pope's Exorcist half a dozen times.
Yeah. So this one, it feels like that third grunge movie you watch. It's gross. It wants to shock you, but it's just overall just like, nah.
Yeah. And it makes me lament the film that could have been.
Yeah.
Because we've seen movies about cursed movie sets. We have. And we've seen movies, things like even Scream 3 where there's a killer on the set killing people. We've seen that done to death. Yeah. But we've never actually seen an actual investigation on the behind the scenes of a horror movie that was believed to have been cursed. And I think there's something interesting about having the director of someone on the Exorcist set who grew up and was in movies in the 80s and 90s. He was actually in, I believe, Near Dark with Adrian Pasdar, who plays the guy in the opening scene. So he's been on these sets for a while. I would have loved to have seen him actually take that and reckon with his kind of distance from his father, because it does seem like he's playing with that in the film.
Yeah, it seems like he can't get away from that staple.
Yeah.
And I would like to see something a little more of its genuine self, rather than trying to reenact the tone and all this stuff without getting into trademarks of sound and edit, all that flavor. But I would like to see something a little more like, maybe you want to do something where it doesn't seem so attached to it. It seems like its own self.
Yeah, it kind of maybe seems
like its own parallel universe. This happened.
Yeah, it seems so inherently linked to the background of the people involved that it reminded me a bit of remember how that one little criticism I had of like Ghostlight, where I felt like the Romeo and Juliet portion of that film
you don't recognize
was so intrinsically linked that it would have been obvious what the connection is.
Yeah, it's so ironic that you didn't recognize the irony.
Yeah, exactly. Except that was on a smaller scale and I could get over it a little bit easier. This was an entire movie that was doing that. So
there's a lot of things we wish for this movie. You're right, and I think you can't sacrifice just maintaining a tone when you don't flesh out the story a little bit. But things they did. It seems like somebody else had their hands into editing and cutting, and there's suggestions of you need to do this and this and this, and he's listening.
Yeah, and it may have just been a fault of making a movie 5 years ago and finally releasing it now. Is those movies, if you go and get money from the bank, you are paying a lot more interest the longer you wait to get your return on it. Yeah. So this might have been a case where they were like, we got to get this out, or it might have been a case where The Pope's Exorcist came out and was doing really well, and they're like, maybe we won't shelve this after all.
Yeah.
That happened with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4 with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger. They waited until they were both popular and said, maybe we should drop this movie.
As a rental. And then people are like, well, these are 2 stars now. We got to see this.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of, I would say, Hollywood politicking to get this out. Everybody seems like Russell Crowe just wants to stick with this. And it's kind of funny because this was made before The Pope's Exorcist.
Yeah, so this isn't as closely related as we would think.
No. And obviously he's entertained by the idea of just kind of not really a reenactment of the exorcism, but more of a play on the universe of attachment almost.
Yeah. And there's some interesting themes at play. We just don't explore them.
Exactly. Right.
Or maybe we did in one of the drafts. But I do lament, I do feel sad about this movie not doing well, but I hope that Russell Crowe continues having fun in his movies. I think things like even like Thor or Love and Thunder and then doing The Pope's Exorcist, I love this era of his career because he's got all of his awards and his money, and he's going to do the things that interest him. It's kind of like when Paul Giamatti announced he was going to be in a Hostel TV series. It's like, that's confusing, but I'm all for it.
I've seen enough demon-possessed movies where the person bangs their head on the table. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
You're just hurting yourself.
Right.
We want you to be okay.
It's a cliche now it's a cliche. Mm-hmm. Now it's a cliche. Stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we ended that story with Hereditary. Once he slammed his head into the desk on that film, we're good now.
Yeah. Now that's a play. So, yeah. All right. Moving on. So what do you think of our assessment of The Exorcism? Does it need to be exorcised?
Yeah, the film is available right now for streaming, rental, and purchase. Once you've seen it, come back and let us know your thoughts in the comments section. We'd love to discuss it with you. And you know what? Pitch us your third Exorcism film with Russell Crowe. We'd love to see what you think shenanigans he should
Exorcist
get
3
into.
is great, man.
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah, give us that Exorcist 3 level of Russell Crowe horror films.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and you can find all of my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
You can find my show, The St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts.